Okay.
Okay.
We're back for part 2.
We're back. 2 moms on a walk talking further about the judges and deciding not to look at people's flaws, not being the focus of what we see in them, but rather turning our eyes to the other things that are in them, the pure, good, lovely, noteworthy, praiseworthy.
Yes, those things. We
Yeah.
were, so as soon as we turned the camera off, I remembered something else that we had been talking about prior, which was, if you look at Samson's life, God created him with big destiny, and he blew it over and over and over through just human frailty, really, is what it comes down to.
Yeah,
Ego
he was super
and-
impulsive and
Yes, all the things.
I want her. And then he just acts on his impulses, right?
Yeah. And in spite of that, God still used him massively, like massively, to the point that he is still considered a hero of
Yeah.
the faith, of the Jewish faith. And here we are, centuries later, still talking about him and learning from his life in the positive and in the negative. I mean,
Yeah.
definitely there's some object lessons there, but it made me think about so many people who I've encountered who've blown it so many times in their life and had real brokenness and just feel like they've just blown it and they're
Yeah.
all used up and they're not going to be good for anything. And it's just not true. It's just not the way God works. Like, was there more that God wanted to do through Samson? Yeah, I would say yes. Did he create him for more than that? Yeah, but he also chose him knowing his frailty and knowing that the big things he wanted Samson to accomplish, he was going to be able to accomplish.
Well, plus, like, God knew his frailties, so he actually used those in his plans and purposes. He knew that Samson would most likely run after a woman, and so he actually used that in his story. He knows our frailties, so he gets what our weaknesses are, and he'll use those things to lead us into his plans and purposes. But I have to agree with you that had Samson, like, really dedicated his life to walking with God, there's so much more that Samson would have been known for, like so much more. So he ended up being the judge for 20 years. Maybe God actually could have used him for years and years.
I don't know, there's potential there, but does our potential, our missed potential, mean like equal missed destiny? That's a tricky one. It makes me think about actually Arthur Burke. I remember listening to one of his teachings, and he was talking about our timeline, you know, the story of our life, and how we look back on our timeline, and if we've had times of difficulty and sin and brokenness, our human nature, we want to be able to go in and delete those things, just like we would to a video. Like, let's just cut that scene. It's okay if it looks like it skips a beat. I just
wish
rather
we
not.
could do
Exactly, right? But Arthur made the point of, that's not what God does. God redeems it all, so that even with those pitfalls and glitches and big mistakes, this is where the blood covers those things and actually creates beauty out of our timeline. Even
Well, he does say at the end of Samson's life that with that last, act that he did where he tore down the temple, he actually destroyed more Philistines in that than he did his whole life. So
yeah, so I think that's reassurance, actually.
Yeah.
So here we go. We're coming to a new conclusion here.
we're loud.
Yes, if you are one of those people who has had a difficult past, things that you've done that you feel like God can't use me. I'm broken. I'm, not the kind of person he's going to use. That's just not true. That's what the enemy wants to tell you, is that those dark spots in your timeline disqualify you from the greatness that God created you for. And that's not the way God is. But the key is we have to bring him into those places on our timeline and let him go over them.
It's that dwell. It's Psalm 91 again. Dwell in the shelter of the Most High.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's where you see it. There was one time where we were ministering to a gal who had so much pain and brokenness that she was afraid to come and sit with us and have this conversation because she just didn't want to go there. And as we were like initiating the session and praying with her, I got this picture of Jesus walking alongside her with a bucket, and the bucket was his blood that he'd shed for her, and he had like this massive paintbrush, and as they were walking along, he was painting his blood over those things and just saying, we don't need to look at that right now. We don't need to look at that right now. And sometimes when we're ready, then we'll go back and he'll be able to take us to those things. But to feel like, I got to fix it all, it all has to be cleaned up, or I'm just of no use, that's a lie. That's where the enemy wants to trap us.
Yeah, that's good, Barb.
I
Is
like
good?
that.
Did we come to a good conclusion?
We did.
I think we
Better.
did. Okay.
Okay.
All right.